So we're standing in front of one of William McTaggart's best known works, but it's also one that really epitomizes and pulls together many of the ideas that he really translated into his art and brought together in his art, about where he was from, his identity, his unique understanding of this bit of the world, Kintyre on the west coast of Scotland, and of the Gaelic language. It has a hopefulness, but also a poignancy about the people that are left behind. And I know that you were very drawn to McTaggart because he is one of the few native Gaelic speakers that we have represented in the Scottish collection.
Just looking at the painting, it just feels there's something strangely real about it, despite the fact that it's obviously got an abstract sort of sense, you know, to it, but it feels very visceral, if that's the word. And you know, the people in it, although they're kind of faint, when you start to pick them out, you really feel a sense of how they're feeling and the way they're looking out to this ship that's leaving. And it somehow manages to do it, I think, without being too nostalgic or kind of yeah, it's got that sort of realness to it, and I'm not sure how he's achieved that, but I guess partly because he's so embedded in the culture and the fact that his own sister emigrated, you know, so he really has that sort of first-hand connection with the subject and what he's painting, and it just somehow comes across. And yeah, I think that kind of embedded in a culture thing, like, feels like something I can relate to. As I said, you know, I've got all these different identities, but that part of my identity, I feel like, you know, you can sit back a little bit on that, what you've grown up with, you know, and hopefully it'll come across in what you do. Yeah, like, that's the hope anyway, and it certainly is what I see with William McTaggart.
He was a native Gaelic speaker. He was from Eros on the Kintyre Peninsula. He would return every year to Kintyre in order to paint this world, this environment that he knew so well, the people he knew. He had really kind of matured into his own personal style, and it's, as you say, there's something that he really incorporated. It was these idea of these sort of almost ghostly figures. Yeah. Yeah. They're so immersed in their own landscape, yeah, that they almost become imperceptible to it, you know. Yeah. And as you say, you have to really kind of focus in to see them, and I think that is very representative of Gaelic culture as well. It's completely, people and land are one and the same. They're immersed, yeah, within each other.
In this piece, I suppose, I kind of felt like it really had to be told by somebody who'd lived it in that same way that McTaggart has through his sister. And so I suppose it's probably the most traditional of the tracks, and it's the one that I've not written myself really at all. It's a traditional song, or, well, not a traditional song, it's an old song written by John MacLean, who was a poet who himself emigrated to Nova Scotia from Tiree in, I think, the early 1800s. It's called Chullia Gruamich, which sort of the gloomy woodland, the gloomy forest, and it's also known as the poet in Canada. And in it, he sort of talks about how he's pretty miserable over there, and he's lost his, you know, he's losing his Gaelic, and he's not, no one's asking him to sing. That's one of the last lines, and you know, can't find a céilí and things like that. But actually, apparently, he's actually written some quite positive songs about his life in Nova Scotia as well. So there's, you know, there's different tales to the story, I suppose. But yeah, it felt kind of important to use that first-hand experience, I suppose, for this, because it's such a specific experience, isn't it, that the emigration?
the poignancy and the personal sense of loss from the people that are left behind, but also from the people that are going. Do you think with Gaelic culture that this is whether he was also kind of referring to that idea of perhaps it was an end to it the way it once was?
For sure, and certainly places like Nova Scotia, where the song was based, you know, that's sort of become, you know, an area where people speak Gaelic still, and you know, Scottish step dancing was kind of thrived there when it was kind of lost over here, and it's now come back here, but kind of through ties to...
Certainly here at the galleries we get that a lot of people coming saying my relatives originally came from Scotland, or you know, I have and finding that connection through art, through music, through these of ways of expressing yourselves. And the other thing I think which is really exciting about this work, and that we see in a lot of late McTaggart's, is his brushwork and sense of colour, and how he was able to capture the sea in this part of the world, and also these epic skies, you know, the kind of the light hitting the undercurrents of the clouds, and I think, do you think that that correlates into the Gaelic language as well, and the kind of the vocabulary around sea and sky?
Yeah, again, you know, like what we were talking about, all these different words, you know, there's lots and lots of different words to describe light and sky and sea, and because it's ever changing, and there's so many different iterations of it, and somehow I think McTaggart seems to catch that, and you can kind of see it from painting to painting as well. It feels like they're always kind of slightly different, you know, and he gets that sense of the ever-changing light and the ever-changing weather, and that we enjoy here in Scotland.
Yes, definitely. And he was quite ahead of his time in many respects. And I think that dynamism and the sensory feel really comes through in his artwork. And is that something that you explore within your music as well?
And I've tried to convey that in the piece, you know, the larger piece, with some of his other works, like Macrahanish Bay, where myself and my partner Grant went to, you know, it was really great to just go to Kintyre and be in these places where he, you know, where he painted and where he got the inspiration from. But we also took the harp, the electric harp, we can sort of plug it in and hold it up against the wind, and the wind plays the harp and creates these beautiful noises. So we actually took some recordings from the kind of crashing, it's sort of a much more crashing waves that you get there, and used that as a sort of rhythmic element to that piece as well. So it felt really important to use the elements that he also used and experienced.
I think he would be really heartened that it's come back, and perhaps that is to do with this idea of immigration as well, this kind of that we go out into the world but also things come back to us as well, and there's a kind of cyclical nature to it in that way. Sure.